Welcome to Explorations. Today we're speaking with Sam Magill. Sam is an old friend and a photographer, a poet, a philosopher, a coach, and a coach supervisor, and has made a living of experiencing life firsthand and using stories and images to support leaders and coaches in their own journeys. In this second of a four-part interview, we explore the value of conversation and its Latin roots in conversare, which means to turn together. So let's get to it. You speak about conversation so much and the value of conversation. Why is that so integral to effective coaching? And it seems like conversation and intentional photography kind of walk hand in hand.
Well, a little bit of etymology that I've read about the word conversation suggests that you can break it down into conversare, or to turn together, to turn. Mm-hmm. And in a true conversation, we turn, things evolve. And the same thing is true with photography. If we go down the street taking snapshots, that's one thing. But if we engage with the landscape, if we engage with the person we're photographing for a portrait, we both turn. We're both shaped by the encounter. The photographer is certainly shaped by the encounter. I remember a time I was photographing lavender in France, in Provence. Perfect ripeness of the lavender fields. And I walked along the road and I said, well, if I take that, it's just going to be a postcard like all the other postcards in the tourist shops. What else is going on here? So I started actually looking. That's the key phrase. And I said, what is moving me when I look at this field of lavender? Wow, right here at my feet, I can see that there's a breeze that's just budging the tips, the blossoms on the lavender. But down inside, closer to the earth, the stalk is perfectly still. So then I had to say, well, that's cool. This field's alive. How can I photograph that? That's not snapshot photography. And it depended on my reaction, my engagement, the living encounter with that lavender field. That's a conversation.
Mm-hmm. So in many respects, a person reveals their soft quiver in the wind, in the subtlety of the things they're saying, and maybe the things they're not saying.
Yeah.
Interesting. But it seems like you, as you're saying this, is that coaching has moved, as it's being practiced today, doesn't make room for that story. Am I correct in that, or?
Well, I want to be cautious that I'm not overly critical, because there's an awful lot of excellent transformative coaching going on.
Right.
But I'm holding up a caution flag, especially to, boy, this is going to sound funny, especially to the true believers in coaching, who believe it is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that it can solve any problem. Well, I don't believe that's true. I believe that it's really, really useful, but only if we slow it down a little bit. We talk so much about coaching competencies, and they easily become something we tick off during an exam to get our certification. Right? Yeah, that's important to have a professional standard to live up to, but that's not the same thing as the living encounter. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I'm interested in the living encounter and how I think, how I am present, how I am moved by my client, how the client is moved by me. This is a two-way deal. What stories does my client have about me? What is my client projecting onto me or trying to hand me a role? You know, I know a story of a situation where a 35-year-old client sort of went to her coach as if he was her father to take care of her, console her. And he slipped into being a parent. He had a daughter the same age as his client. You know, he slipped into being dad instead of being a coach. It takes enormous awareness to catch that and say, whoops, 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 there's an invitation to be somebody's dad, loving, good dad. That's not coaching.